Welcome to another edition of Bucs Insider, coming to you from the Bucs studio, presented by Ticketmaster. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith and staff writer Bree Dix here to cover all your Bucs news after that absolutely epic win. We were all three in Detroit. It was incredible. I mean, one of my favorite wins I've seen in a while that didn't have like playoff or Super Bowl implications. It was incredible. So I know we're going to get into all of the things with it. Let's start out with this Baker Mayfield to Godwin automatic connection. It is just almost to the point where, you know, if he targets Godwin, he's going to catch it. And I love it. And also for a million third down conversions, it's just amazing. So he's already matched, Godwin has already matched his touchdowns from last year in just the first 6 quarters of the season. Lions game marks the 6th time that Godwin has gone over 100 receiving yards in a single half. He now has 21 career regular season games overall with 100-plus receiving yards, which is second only to Mike Evans, of course. 200 receiving yards through week 2 are the most of his career through the team's first 2 games of a season and 7th most in team history through 2 games. I feel like I could have kept going with 5,000 more stats about him to just explain how incredible this is. And again, just I love this idea of, we all wondered, what is it going to look like in the Liam Cohen offense? We'd heard things, oh, let's put him back in the slot more. Let's see how this goes. What's this going to look like? And also hearing from guys like Mike Evans that he looked finally like the Godwin of pre-injury. So all those things made us incredibly excited to start the season for good reason. And it turns out we were right to think that. And I actually had Liam Cohen on my radio show this week, which you can also watch on YouTube. And I asked him a little bit about why the slot for Godwin. Why is this such a good way to use him? So let's hear what he had to say.
His ability to play in there is because he can also block so well, and that he can do some of the dirty work that, let's be honest, not everybody wants to do. But when you have that guy like we did in LA with Cooper, you use him to your strength. So the defense, when he's in that slot and he's tighter, is it run, is it pass, is it screen, what is it? And you know, he's given us that flexibility. So it was a no-brainer as soon as, you know, we were hired that we were going to move him back to the slot.
Man, have they figured this out? And I'm sure Godwin's fantasy owners are also very happy about that, which you, of course, have called multiple times.
Yeah, I wonder who suggested
that. It has just been incredible to watch, and I think he's been such a big part of this.
I enjoyed watching those highlights while you were talking, and one of them was that screen pass on 3rd and 22. That's the only pass on 3rd down that Chris has caught this year that didn't go for a first down, and he got 19 yards on a 3rd and 22. He almost got there.
Got it.
And if you watch those highlights again, you'll see that they knew it was coming. All the pass rushers took like one step and then stopped, but Baker still completed to him, and he still almost got the first down and did get us close enough to kick a field goal, because you only have to be like within 57 or 58 yards for Chase McLaughlin to make it.
That guy is killing it. Yeah, so I know also, of course, big storyline of that game, besides Godwin and his success, was, of course, the offensive line. That we knew Aiden Hutchinson was good at football. Turns out, also accurate. Secondly, that we knew Luke Gedeke was going to end up missing the game, and what was that going to be looking like? So tell me, Scott, what were your takeaways overall? We know, of course, the obvious one of Aiden Hutchinson being quite a game wrecker. Outside of that, what did you notice?
Yeah, well, to be honest, Aiden Hutchinson has 10.5 sacks over his last 4 games. So Aiden Hutchinson is a problem. And when you don't have your starting right tackle, it becomes even more of a problem, because he generally rushes from that side, and he did for most of that game. And so it may seem like a weird place to start, you know, the offensive line after that game. But first of all, one thing I want to point out is that Baker Mayfield said after the game, don't judge Justin School, who filled in for Gedeke on this game. You know, this is a challenge for anybody.
Right.
But overall, through the first 2 games, I think you have to be pretty pleased with how the new look offensive line has gone. I mean, yes, there was the Aiden Hutchinson problem, but otherwise in the first 2 games, I think Baker Mayfield's had a lot of time to operate, and he said so. And he couldn't have 129.1 passer rating through 2 games if he wasn't getting time to throw. And one guy that probably needs to be spotlighted is the rookie, center Graham Barton, who has really, really pleased the coaches so far. And take a look at this highlight here. The guy's funny. He's like, he's still blocking this guy. See,
somewhere, he just disappears out of the bottom
moving
of the
him like he's like a plow. He's like a snow plow, and he's just moving him 10 yards down the field. So
and talk about playing through the whistle.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There was another play that he was instrumental on in that Ronnie Barber talked about in the first game, and he just showed how he did such a good job of. He had a guy to block, but they stunted, and so a guy was coming around on his left, and and there was a seam there, and somehow Graham very quickly got off this guy and was able to block that guy. I don't think a lot of players would have been able to get to that guy. So really good start for Graham Barton, and that's why I think the Bucs offensive line has been encouraging so far, other than the Aiden Hutchinson situation.
Yes, which may just have been a good player situation as well. So, Bree, again, I know another one of the big storylines was the fact that our defense was the walking wounded after week 2, and we had no idea for some of the week who was going to be available, that you had so many guys either injured or sick and having to get moved around, that we knew this was going to be a tough task. And I just think how inspiring watching this defense come together, rise to the occasion, and with all that adversity, still pull off a win against a good team on the road. Tell me what your biggest keys were to the secondary being able to pull this off.
Well, I think you just saw everybody stepping up. You did have Antoine Winfield Jr., your all-pro. They allowed a touchdown on just 1 of 7 red zone drives that Detroit had, limited them to 16 points. And Zion McCollum, I think you saw his best game as a Buccaneer, intercepted Jared Goff's first pass from scrimmage. And I think the stats, he was targeted 5 times. He had 4 passes defensed and 6 tackles. That is insane. Todd Bowles has talked about how the game, he feels like, has slowed down for him, but also just Zion McCollum talking about the technique, the tackling, because that was one of the things that had kind of been an issue for him in the open field in this offseason. He talked about training with his twin brother, no pads on, working through the fundamentals, not lunging, not leaving his feet too early, and I think you saw the fruition of that. And then Jordan Whitehead, my gosh, quarterback of the defense, was all over it. He had career-high tying 11 tackles, 1 for loss, 1 pass defense. And I think you just saw him, the sideline to sideline, all over the field, whether it was the bracket coverage in the red area on Jamison Williams. He clipped David Montgomery by like 1 leg. Jordan is not the biggest man. And then also dropping Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield. And then Christian Izien, who primarily plays in the nickel, started at free safety for Antoine Winfield Jr. He was injured, had Goff's intercepted Goff on the second interception, and then just the downhill burst that he showed. What a performance by the secondary, and props to Todd Bowles as well.
And so necessary.
You threw out a couple stats there that I just realized is an interesting combination. Zion McCollum only allowed 1 completion, right, on his 5 targets. But you said he had 6 tackles.
Yeah.
That means he's not. Sometimes you don't want your corners to have a lot of tackles.
Right, because it means they're allowing
giving up
catches,
a lot, but that's not the case. So he was defending the pass well, but also obviously very helpful in run support.
Game.
So for Zion to have come that far to where that was a weakness, and now obviously that was an asset for the Bucs defense. And I didn't even put 2 and 2 together until you said it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And of course, like we talked about, the whole reason for this segment was how many injuries there were last week to the secondary. What was that going to look like? So now let's take a look at this week's injury report. Again, we're shooting this Thursday morning, so we only have Wednesdays available to us. There will be 2 more. What do we know about how much healthier are we going to have to do this whole fun shuffle around game again?
So kind of the names to watch on Wednesday: no Vita Vea, no Antoine Winfield, no Luke Gedeke, and no Kalijah Cansey.
Not great.
Yeah, not great.
No Will
exactly.
Golston
Yeah, no Will Golston.
So that's a lot of defensive
specifically
linemen.
seeing Luke Gedeke, how he's able to progress through concussion protocol will be something to monitor. And then Vita Vea as well with that MCL sprain. Todd Bowles said they're kind of seeing that day by day, seeing how he progresses. So it'll be interesting to see who potentially upgrades to limited on Thursday.
Yeah, like I said, that D-line, that looked pretty rough.
Almost all of them were up there.
Yeah.
I think the Vita Vea news has been viewed as mostly positive,
I agree, especially
compared to what you thought might be.
100%. Because anytime you get rolled up on, that is just always so scary. And so, I think the fact that we're talking about watching him to like day to day, even that just seeing how it's going, and that we're not putting him on IR right away. We're not saying, oh yeah, he's done. I feel like in the moment there was probably a lot of us that were worried about that for sure.
Yeah, and not on that list was Baker Mayfield. I thought his back might be
that one
after that one play.
Bending backwards.
He's fine.
I wish people could see the video of all of us in the press box as it happened.
Gasp.
The whole row of all of us just went, oh. Like,
I was very happy that it was a dome stadium and an open air press box, and it's so loud there because I exclaimed pretty loudly and I would have been embarrassed, but nobody could hear me. So
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So it's okay. All right, let's move on to our trivia segment. What do we have this week, Bree?
Zion McCollum had a career-high 4 passes defensed in Detroit. Who holds the team record for most passes defensed in a single season?
The answer, which we'll reveal later. So you have to
I was like,
stick around.
man, you're not giving them any time to think about
No,
this.
I don't. They
like,
have to stick around for the rest of the show. To me, is one of the more underrated players in team history. last week.
Okay, well that already gets rid of my
High praise from
So
Scott.
it's not Rodeo.
I know. I was like, well, there goes my guess because I don't think he's underrated. I think he's appropriately
He's
rated.
in the Hall of Fame,
In the Hall of Fame,
he's
so yeah.
rated
Yeah.
well.
Interesting. Okay, I like that. Also, we're going to continue. I love in a little bit more of the Zion themed show. I think he's deserved it, which is going to be fun. Okay, so now milestones to track. Scott, this is up to you here. Tell us what we're going to be watching for, maybe this week in particular.
We got the Mike Evans still 4 away from 100, and he's tied with Devontae Adams for 12th because Devontae got one last week.
Touchdowns.
Touchdowns, touchdown catches.
And then also points that he
Oh yeah,
could,
that's the big one.
he could become the highest scoring
right.
Buccaneer
Yeah,
ever.
if he gets one more touchdown, he will pass Martin Gramatica for the most points scored in team history.
It's incredible.
I think we mentioned this last week, but it's worth mentioning again that there's only 2 other teams whose their all-time leading scorer is not a kicker, and that's Emmitt Smith and Jerry Rice for the Cowboys and 49ers.
So again,
respectively.
pretty incredible.
Good company to be in.
Yeah, and I think that a running back in some ways makes more sense because of how often you're trying to punch it in from 1, 2, 3 yards in, that you're not always throwing, that you're, that it feels like sometimes they have a better chance at touchdowns. So then seeing Jerry Rice and Mike Evans, it's like, man, it's just incredible. I think that's going to be great. And also, shameless plug, we're having Mike on our Bucs Total Access show.
You guys are off to a good
We're
start.
killing it if I do say so myself. Yeah, Baker and then Yaya and then now Mike Evans is coming on Monday. So if you don't think I am rooting for that touchdown to get scored, you will know that if that happens, I will be screaming even in the silent press box when you're not supposed to be. All right, so now it is time also for our fantasy watch. What do we have here?
This is my part.
This is your part that you love so much.
I guess one thing would be, I wonder if some Bucs fans who drafted Rachaad White, should you be worried right now? There's always players you panic about early in the season when they aren't producing the level you expected. And there's, Rachaad only has, I think, 49 rushing yards so far. And in this last game, he only caught 1 pass. And I think it's reasonable to have a little bit of concern because Bucky Irving is biting into his carrying load a little bit and has actually had better rushing numbers. But I think probably I would preach patience here because there are most games I think he's going to catch more passes. That's just not the way this game was scripted or the way it was defended apparently. Right. And he did get a little dinged up in the game, and he's on the injury report again this week. But overall, I wouldn't panic just yet on that. But it's something to keep an eye on.
Okay, all right.
And then also, if you're a player who streams defenses, this would probably be a good week to pick up the Buccaneers, who are available in a lot of leagues because Denver's coming in and they have a rookie quarterback. And he's probably going to be really good in the long run. And Sean Payton has a very good history of designing really good offenses around whoever he has. So I'm not saying Denver's offense isn't destined for good things, but they're off to a slow start, only 1 touchdown through the first 2 games, and playing a rookie quarterback, there's a good chance that Todd Bowles' defense will be able to, mix him up a little bit. So it might be a good defense to pick up if you're streaming.
Okay. All right, next up is our human interest side, the off the field, where you get to know our players. And again, we just felt like Zion McCollum deserved practically an entire Insider show just to himself after that performance. Also, he's just a great guy. So I decided to just compile some Zion fun facts. That's what we're doing today. Okay, so the first one is he went to the same high school as Mike Evans, which props to that high school. I mean, churning it out, down there in the Galveston, Houston area. So I thought that was really cool. And he's talked about that Mike was just this cult-like iconic figure that you knew going to high school there.
Yeah.
Like you knew Mike Evans 100%. And also another Buccaneers connection he had even before coming here is that he and his brother are twins. They grew up reading Rondé and Tiki's books about being brothers and twins, and I think
what are the odds?
I love that so much. And yeah, he said he's like every night when we'd get a chance to pick a book, that was always what we were picking as one of those books, sitting there reading that. And I just thought how cool for him to end up on the team with the high school icon and then the kids' books that they ended up reading. And then his dad played for the Bulls back in the day and missed playing with Michael Jordan by just 1 year.
Oh,
so close.
Wow.
So close. And so you think, oh, well, his dad played basketball. Did Zion play basketball? He did. Unfortunately, though, he was only 5'8" as a sophomore, which is wild to think now. But based on who he is now, nothing against someone who might have been less than 5'8" as a
Yeah.
sophomore.
Only 5'8".
Nothing against that whatsoever.
I would have loved to have been 5'8".
as a sophomore. So he clearly grew a wee bit later than that. So he gave up basketball because of that. And also originally he was going to be a safety. So now if you know his brother, who plays for the Eagles that we're playing against soon, his brother's a safety. Zion is the outside corner. The whole reason that happened, it was actually supposed to be the other way around. That as twins, and identical twins, their coaches got confused. So day one of practice, Zion lined up at safety, his brother lined up at corner. The next day they said, all right, Zion, corner this, and he and his brother were just too nice to say anything. And so they just did it, and here we are, and it worked out well for both of them.
Yeah.
So we're very happy about that, which I love that the whole reason he is here as a corner is because someone confused him as a twin. So I thought that was a lot of fun. And he's also such a great guy.
Yeah.
If you saw that in a movie, you'd probably think that's
Doesn't
corny.
happen. That does
Come
feel like
on.
one of those 90s Disney movies about sports
Right?
where they're just like, I don't know which one you are. Go over there. And it worked out just fine. All right, so now we are going to move into our next week preview. Let's get into that Broncos game. So you brought up the rookie quarterback matchup, and I just feel like it's always fun in my mind to watch a Todd Bowles defense against a rookie quarterback because you already know Todd loves to scheme things up, loves to try to throw
exotic
people
pressures,
off.
yeah.
And you know when it's a rookie quarterback, he's back there
Head
just
is
like,
spinning.
what am I going to do to this guy? So I already feel like Todd Bowles' natural game plan fits what you would say the conventional wisdom is of how you face a rookie quarterback. That you want to stop the run first so they don't get to rely on that, and then you try to dial up some weird, distinct pressures, some things they might not recognize to just throw them off their game like that, and then also get to these third down situations where you can pin your ears back and go after them. So I feel like that already just lends itself well to a rookie quarterback. But I also think it's going to be interesting to see now. The first rookie quarterback this season was Jaden Daniels, who can beat you with his legs, and he did. That he was able to get a lot of yardage there, and so a little bit different situation. Whereas Bo Nix, probably not going to do that quite as much. And also, he has been, to your point about Sean Payton trying to help rookie quarterbacks or just his quarterback in general of what they need at that moment, he's been having Bo just throw the shortest of short passes. His average depth of target is very, very small. I do think that will limit the Bucs' ability to try to do the pressuring they would like to do because it will get out of his hands so much quicker. But I do still think that it's a great sign because we've seen this defense has done, as Coach Bowles said, a pretty good job of tackling. If you're throwing these incredibly short depths of target, you're expecting yak. You're expecting these guys to be able to get some yards after catch. If the Bucs can tackle well and therefore not make it easier, not let him just keep doing these dump offs, but put him in third and longs more likely, then you can try to get some of that pressure on him. And I just think it's going to be fun to see the ways that Coach Bowles gets to mastermind and dial it up. So Scott,
Bo Nix, his scouting report coming out, he set the record NCAA or FBS record last year with 77.4% completion percentage. He is a very accurate passer, that's true, but those numbers were helped by the fact that they almost never threw the ball downfield. It was almost all their passes were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Now he's in the NFL. They are trying a little bit to get the ball downfield. Last week against Pittsburgh, he threw 12 passes that went farther than 10 yards down the field, but only 3 of them were completed and 2 were intercepted. So that's still a work in progress. And the one thing that has been working for them, because he's so familiar with it, is the short passing game. So I think that's probably going to be the key defensively. And
of course, as we talked about, defensive line is not looking great on that injury report. So when we said step one is stopping the run, that you're asking guys that are not your typical starters to be doing that. But it felt like this last game, your depth on the D-line did its job. Do you feel like you can see the D-line being able to still do that this week?
Like you said, that's what they're going to want to do. They're going to want to stop the run. And also, Bo Nix he's not Jaden Daniels, but he is pretty mobile. He is their leading rusher right now with 60 yards through 2 games. So they're going to want to stop him, and they're going to contain him, and they're going to want to bottle up the rushing attack. But they probably won't have Kalijah. I don't think he's expected back this week. Vita Vea is a question mark. Will Golston is on there. Logan Hall is on the injury report. So we didn't have Kalijah last week, and then Vita Vea was knocked out right after halftime. But guys like C.J. Brewer and Mike Green stepped up, and those are guys that have been around here for a while. They're on the practice squad right now, but they've been here since last year. And Mike Green actually was getting a lot of activity early last season after making the team in his second year, and then he got a little dinged up and was kind of uninvolved the rest of the way. But these are guys that know the defense and that Coach Bowles in particular has trust in. So it's not ideal if both Kalijah and Vita can't go If that happens, that's not going to be great. But we do have guys that can step up, and Ben Stilley, who was inactive last week, has been here for a few weeks now. So hopefully he's kind of absorbed this a little bit. And basically what Todd Bowles always says in situations like this is these other guys made the team for a reason.
Right.
They're good football players. So C.J. Brewer may not be Vita Vea, and that's why Vita Vea is playing over C.J. Brewer. But when C.J. Brewer has to play, he's a player that they have confidence in. And he actually had the hit on Jared Goff on the pass that Christian Izzy intercepted. So we've seen those guys step up. They may have to do it again this weekend.
Right. Well, and the Broncos will be down one of their starting offensive tackles.
Oh, that's
so
right. Put 'em
you
on
know
IR.
that Yaya Diaby and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka are going to be licking their chops on this one.
Mike
very true.
McGlinchey.
Yeah.
They just put him on injury reserve.
Great offensive lineman name.
Yeah.
That it is.
So, Bree, you talked about our corners last week.
Yes.
Why don't we talk about their corners this week? We got one in particular
yes.
who
Patrick
is
Surtain.
bit of a name that
pretty
people
good
might
at football.
recognize. Yeah, but we don't play the Broncos very often. So tell us about this guy that the Bucs fans may not be as familiar with.
Yes, well, he reset the cornerback market, and actually he passed Antoine Winfield Jr. and Jair Alexander, becoming the highest paid DB earlier this month. Was an All-Pro in 2022, and he's one of those corners that he checks all the boxes. He has the elite ball skills. He can phase routes at all three levels, the quick acceleration out of his transitions. But Baker Mayfield, when asked about Surtain earlier this week, very emphatically expressed his belief in Mike Evans and those 50-50 balls. So basically, regardless of who Mike Evans is going to be going up against, he trusts who the Bucs have.
I think I agree with that.
I'm pretty sure, though, that Surtain will be shadowing Mike Evans. In the first game, he covered DK Metcalf on all but one of his routes.
Yeah.
And in the second game, he did mostly the same thing against George Pickens of the Steelers. So they're not the Broncos. Most teams either play their corners, keep them left and right, or boundary field, depending on where the ball is placed on which hash mark. They are probably going to let him follow Mike Evans around. You can say the Buccaneers have 1A and 1B when you talk about who's the number one receiver for a team with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. But since Chris Godwin takes most of his routes out of the slot,
Less likely.
the guy that Surtain is probably going to be shadowing is Mike Evans. And so that'll be a really great battle.
A
to
really
watch.
fun battle to watch for sure. All right, now it is time for the answer to our trivia question.
Drum roll, please. So the underrated player I was talking about is Donnie Abraham, who was a cornerback that the Buccaneers drafted 1 year before they drafted Rondé Barber. And he was the Bucs' all-time leader in interceptions with 31 before Rondé eventually surpassed him because Rondé played for 1 billion years. Donnie Abraham was here for about 6 seasons, and then he went to the Jets. But in which was the year? In 1999, he recorded 25 passes defense, which is still
incredible.
a single-season record. Actually, Carlton Davis got kind of close a few years.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, but it's still a record. And Donnie Abraham, also a very, very nice human being, but he's probably one of the players that we don't talk about a lot in Bucs history, but he was a big part of that defense that became really good in the late 90s.
Interesting. I like that. I'm going to be impressed if somebody got that out there. I would love to know. Send us tweets to tell us if you got it. All right, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Bucs Insider. Thank you again so much for joining us, and enjoy that game against the Broncos this weekend. We'll see you next week.